Imagine being cherished, admired, and adored, only to realize that what they loved wasn't truly you. It was a version of yourself you didn't even know existed. At first, it feels like warmth, attention, and connection. Their words seem like affirmations, their gestures like devotion. But slowly, cracks appear. The conversations feel shallow. Their interest wanes when your true feelings emerge, and moments when you need understanding reveal a stark emptiness. It's a subtle, painful awakening. They didn't love you. They loved the idea of who they imagined you to be. This realization hits harder than outright rejection because it comes wrapped in memories, laughter, and shared experiences, making it feel personal, intimate, and deeply deceiving. Loving the idea of someone is easy. Loving the person behind that idea requires patience, empathy, and acceptance, qualities that may have been missing all along, leaving you questioning what was real and what was an illusion. When you begin to understand that someone loved the idea of you rather than you as a person, the first thing that becomes clear is the illusion that was carefully constructed in their mind. From the very beginning, they may have been drawn not to your authentic self, but to the qualities, behaviors, or image that fit perfectly into their expectations. These expectations can be subtle, sometimes so seamless that you don't notice them until much later, and they are shaped by what they wanted you to be, not who you truly are. In this stage, their affection feels real because it is rooted in a projection of your potential or an imagined version of yourself that conforms to their desires, dreams, or ideals. This imagined version is often a composite of traits they admire, traits they wish they saw in themselves, or traits that align with their concept of a perfect partner. The problem is that this love is conditional. It exists only as long as you remain within the boundaries of their fantasy. The moment you reveal aspects of your personality that don't align with their vision, the affection may falter, criticisms may arise, and misunderstandings become frequent. You might notice a sense of distance creeping in, a subtle withdrawal, or moments where your opinions, feelings, or choices are dismissed or overlooked because they don't fit the narrative they created. Their attention is often selective, focused on the traits or moments that reinforce the image they hold in their mind, while ignoring or downplaying the parts of you that are real, complex, and human. It's as if the love was never for the person, but for a carefully curated performance, one that you were encouraged, subtly or overtly, to maintain. Over time, you may start to sense that interactions feel scripted or that their support is inconsistent, appearing only when you behave in ways that match their expectations. This creates a strange dynamic where you feel loved in certain contexts, but unseen or misunderstood in others. Often, you might question yourself, wondering if your perceptions are mistaken or whether you are overreacting, because the love does exist, it just exists for the wrong reasons. This makes the realization particularly painful because the affection is genuine in intent, yet fundamentally misplaced in focus. It can lead to internal conflict as you struggle to reconcile the kindness, attention, or care they showed with the hollow truth that it wasn't directed toward your real self. Their admiration often feels performative, responding to the idealized version of you, leaving the authentic aspects of your personality unnoticed or undervalued. This can gradually erode your sense of self-worth as you internalize the belief that the parts of yourself that were ignored are unlovable, when in reality, it is their inability to love genuinely that is at fault. The process of understanding this can be slow and emotionally taxing because it requires separating the fantasy from reality and acknowledging that the bond you believe to be genuine was based on misperception. You may begin to notice patterns in behavior, compliments that focus only on appearances or achievements, selective attention to moods that are convenient for them, or repeated attempts to mold you into a version of yourself that aligns with their vision. Each instance reinforces the painful truth the love was conditional, dependent on your ability to maintain an image rather than a relationship with your authentic self. Coming to terms with this realization involves a complex mixture of grief, clarity, and self-reflection. You grieve the relationship you thought you had, while simultaneously gaining clarity about the difference between loving someone and loving the idea of someone. It becomes a lesson in discernment, helping you recognize that genuine love requires an acceptance of the whole person, the flaws, contradictions, vulnerabilities, and all the nuances that make you human. It also becomes a lesson in self-assertion as you learn to value your own authenticity over the expectations imposed by others. Recognizing this pattern allows you to set healthier boundaries, seek relationships where your real self is celebrated rather than edited, and understand that the pain of this realization, though intense, is a crucial step toward building connections that are honest, reciprocal, and deeply fulfilling. When you start to notice that someone loved the idea of you rather than you as a person, the second aspect that becomes painfully clear is the pervasive sense of disappointment that follows. This disappointment is not simply about unmet expectations in the traditional sense. It is a profound emotional reaction that stems from realizing that the affection and attention you received were never fully grounded in reality. For months or even years, you may have invested your time, energy, and emotions into a relationship that, in your mind, was built on mutual understanding and admiration. You believed that the person truly saw you, appreciated your quirks, understood your struggles, and accepted your flaws. You shared moments of vulnerability, disclosed parts of your past, and celebrated achievements with the sense that your emotional world was mirrored and valued. However, over time, subtle inconsistencies emerge. You notice that their support is conditional, often appearing only when you act in ways that reinforce the image they created in their mind. Your opinions may be overlooked if they challenge their idealized perception, or your needs may be neglected if they do not align with the persona they imagined you to be. The disappointment that arises from this recognition is layered because it is both personal and relational. It is personal because you may begin to question your own judgment, wondering why you failed to see the signs earlier, why you allowed yourself to be invested in someone who did not truly know you. It is relational because the relationship, which once felt warm, secure, and nurturing, begins to reveal its fragility and conditional nature. This realization often comes gradually, marked by small but cumulative moments of dissonance. Compliments may feel hollow, interactions may seem scripted, and the warmth that once existed may feel fleeting or inconsistent. You might notice that moments of genuine connection are rare, occurring only when you conform to the expectations and ideals the other person holds. In this context, disappointment is compounded by confusion. You struggle to reconcile the affection you received with the growing awareness that it was directed at an illusion. This cognitive dissonance, the gap between perception and reality, creates emotional turbulence. You may feel hurt, betrayed, or even foolish for having invested so much of yourself into someone who never fully appreciated the real you. Furthermore, disappointment extends beyond the specific relationship itself. It can spill over into your broader understanding of human connections, causing you to question the sincerity of others' feelings, making it difficult to trust or open up in future relationships. There is also an element of grief intertwined with this disappointment. You mourn not only the relationship you thought you had, but also the idealized version of yourself that existed within the other person's imagination. This can lead to a sense of invisibility, as if your true self has been ignored, devalued, or rendered irrelevant. As you navigate this emotional landscape, the disappointment may initially manifest as anger or resentment toward the other person. You might replay conversations, interactions, and behaviors in your mind, dissecting them for clues or hidden meanings you may wish you had noticed earlier or acted differently. But beneath these reactions lies a deeper, more subtle ache, a recognition that the love you received was not fully authentic, and that your heart was engaged with a shadow rather than a living, breathing reality. Over time, Understanding this disappointment can shift from being solely painful to becoming instructive. It teaches you to pay closer attention to the dynamics of your relationships, to recognize when affection is directed at an image rather than at the person, and to discern between genuine care and projections of desire or expectation. It also encourages reflection on your own patterns, why you may have been drawn to someone who idealized an image instead of embracing your reality, and what boundaries or self-awareness might prevent similar experiences in the future. While the initial waves of disappointment are difficult to endure, they gradually create space for clarity and self-respect. You start to value relationships where authenticity is central, where love and appreciation are given to the real you, not an imagined version. This painful but necessary insight becomes a turning point in understanding both yourself and the nature of genuine connection, teaching that disappointment, though unwelcome, is a vital teacher in discerning true love from love for an illusion. When you begin to understand that someone loved the idea of you rather than you as an actual person, the third aspect that becomes profoundly evident is the sense of emotional emptiness that follows. This emptiness is not simply the absence of affection, it is a void created by the realization that the emotional investment you made was never fully reciprocated in its truest form. Relationships, whether romantic, platonic, or familial, rely on a mutual recognition and validation of each other's authentic selves. When someone loves only the image they have constructed, every interaction, every word of praise, and every display of care carries a hollow undertone. You may have shared your deepest thoughts, your fears, and your dreams, believing that the person on the other end genuinely understood and cherished them. Yet slowly, it becomes clear that their attention was directed not at your real experiences or feelings, but at a curated, idealized version that existed solely in their mind. This creates a profound sense of disconnection, as though you were performing for an audience rather than participating in a genuine emotional exchange. The emptiness is amplified by the contrast between external appearances and internal reality. Outwardly, the relationship may seem warm, affectionate, and supportive. Compliments, gifts, gestures of attention, and shared experiences create the illusion of closeness. Others observing your interactions might perceive the connection as strong, inviolable even, yet within you there is a gnawing sense that something vital is missing. The love you received does not fully nourish your emotional being because it was never grounded in the truth of who you are. This emptiness is closely tied to the loss of validation. Humans are wired to seek acknowledgement of their authentic selves from those they care about. When that acknowledgement is absent, even the most outwardly affectionate actions feel superficial. You may find yourself replaying interactions in your mind, searching for moments of genuine understanding or recognition, only to confront the painful reality that the depth you longed for was never present. Every compliment may feel like a reflection of their desires rather than a reflection of your worth. This leads to a subtle erosion of self-esteem as you begin to question your own value and wonder why the person could not see or appreciate you as you truly are. The emotional emptiness extends to a feeling of isolation. You are physically present in interactions, yet emotionally adrift. This paradox, being surrounded by attention but lacking genuine connection, creates a unique form of loneliness. It is a loneliness that stems not from solitude but from the absence of authentic recognition. Even in moments of shared laughter, conversation, or intimacy, there may be an underlying awareness that the other person's engagement is conditional, contingent on the image they have projected onto you. Over time, this recognition can lead to a defensive withdrawal. You might begin to guard your emotions, curtail your openness, or distance yourself from the relationship in an attempt to protect your sense of self. However, the emptiness is not easily filled by such measures. It lingers as a quiet ache, reminding you that authentic emotional connection requires both parties to see and embrace each other in totality, including imperfections, contradictions, and vulnerabilities. The process of confronting this emptiness can be painful but transformative. It forces introspection and self-awareness, prompting you to examine your own emotional needs and boundaries. You may start to recognize patterns in your past relationships, noticing times when you may have been attracted to someone's idealized vision rather than their genuine self. This awareness encourages growth, helping you prioritize connections that are grounded in honesty, mutual respect, and authentic understanding. Furthermore, the emptiness can catalyze a search for fulfillment beyond external validation. You learn that self-worth cannot depend solely on someone else's perception, and that cultivating a sense of internal validation is essential. By acknowledging the void and confronting it, you develop resilience and emotional intelligence, recognizing that authentic relationships are rare and require discernment, patience, and courage. In the midst of emotional emptiness, there is also an opportunity for renewal. The void creates space for clarity, enabling you to differentiate between superficial affection and genuine love, between projection and true recognition. It encourages deeper connections with those who can see you fully, as well as a stronger relationship with yourself. Over time, this awareness transforms the experience from one of pain to one of empowerment, illustrating that while loving someone who only adored the idea of you leaves a hollow ache, it also provides invaluable lessons about authenticity, emotional honesty, and the profound need for real, reciprocal human connection. When you come to the realization that someone loved the idea of you rather than you, as a real, multifaceted individual, another deeply affecting consequence is the shattering of trust and the difficulty in forming new emotional bonds. Trust is a fundamental pillar of any relationship, and it is built on the consistent belief that the other person sees you, understands you, and accepts you as you are. When that trust is broken by the discovery that their affection was directed toward a projected version of you, it can leave a lasting mark on your ability to connect with others in the future. You may find yourself questioning motives, doubting the sincerity of compliments, and hesitating to share your true thoughts or feelings, because the fear of being loved only for an idea rather than your authentic self becomes a lingering concern. This erosion of trust does not occur all at once, but gradually seeps in as you notice inconsistencies between the image they adored and the reality of your being. You might recall moments where they praised certain traits, yet dismissed or overlooked others, moments when their enthusiasm waned when confronted with aspects of you that did not match their expectations. These experiences plant seeds of doubt, and over time, you may become hyper aware of how others perceive you, constantly measuring yourself against imagined ideals. This hyper-vigilance can be exhausting, as every interaction is scrutinized for signs of projection or conditional acceptance. Relationships, which should offer safety and reassurance, may begin to feel like tests or performances, and the natural spontaneity of connection can be stifled. Emotional vulnerability, which is essential for genuine intimacy, becomes a high-stakes endeavor because exposing your true self now carries the risk of disappointment or rejection. The impact extends beyond romantic relationships to friendships, family interactions, and professional connections. As the experience reshapes the way you navigate human bonds, you may find yourself guarded, reluctant to trust new people fully, and skeptical of their intentions, even when they show genuine care. This defensive stance, while protective, also has the unintended consequence of limiting the depth of your relationships. You may form connections that are superficial or transactional rather than emotionally fulfilling, because allowing yourself to be truly seen feels too risky. Over time, this pattern can create a cycle in which the fear of being misunderstood or unloved for your authentic self inhibits your capacity to engage meaningfully with others, perpetuating feelings of isolation. It is also common to experience self-blame in these situations, questioning whether the failure of the relationship stems from your own flaws or shortcomings. You might wonder if your true self is inherently unlovable, or if the disconnect occurred because you allowed the other person's projection to influence your behavior. These thoughts can intensify the difficulty of rebuilding trust because the internalized doubt complicates your ability to discern genuine affection from idealized attachment. The process of rebuilding trust after such an experience requires immense self-awareness and patience. It involves distinguishing between the past projection and present reality, learning to recognize the difference between someone loving a version of you that doesn't exist and someone valuing your authentic self. Part of this healing involves redefining boundaries and cultivating relationships with people who demonstrate consistent, unconditioned acceptance. This process is neither quick nor linear. Moments of doubt and fear are natural, and emotional scars may remain as reminders of past experiences. However, navigating this journey also fosters growth and resilience. You learn to approach relationships with more discernment, understanding that authenticity is a non-negotiable aspect of meaningful connection. You become more attuned to subtle cues, behaviors, and language that indicate whether someone is truly engaging with who you are or with a constructed idea. This heightened awareness, while born from hurt, empowers you to make conscious choices about whom to allow into your emotional world. Furthermore, this experience teaches the importance of self-validation and self-acceptance, recognizing that your value does not depend on the approval or admiration of someone who only loved a projection of you reinforces the need to develop an internal sense of worth. You may begin to cultivate a stronger, more resilient self that is capable of loving and accepting your own complexities, contradictions, and imperfections. In the end, while the initial realization that someone loved the idea of you erodes trust and complicates emotional engagement, it also serves as a catalyst for personal growth, fostering a deeper understanding of authenticity, discernment, and the essential role of self-respect in every meaningful relationship. Another profound impact of realizing that someone loved the idea of you rather than your true self is the emotional disillusionment that follows, which can deeply affect your perception of love and relationships. Emotional disillusionment arises when the idealized vision you held of a person, or they held of you, collapses under the weight of reality. In relationships, we often invest hope, trust, and affection into a bond that we believe is mutual, genuine, and grounded in authenticity. When it becomes clear that the love was directed at an imagined version of yourself, it can feel as though the foundation of your emotional investment has been pulled out from under you, leaving you adrift in confusion and hurt. This kind of disillusionment is not merely sadness or disappointment. It is a destabilizing experience that challenges your understanding of connection, trust, and emotional intimacy. You may find yourself revisiting memories, dissecting conversations, and replaying interactions, searching for signs that would have revealed the discrepancy between the person they thought you were and who you truly are. Each recollection may carry a twinge of regret or self-doubt, leading to a cycle of introspection that can be emotionally exhausting. This disillusionment can manifest in multiple ways. Some may withdraw from new relationships or approach existing ones with skepticism, fearing that the pattern will repeat itself. You may become hyper aware of your own behavior, wondering if you are presenting yourself in ways that cater to others' expectations rather than embracing your authentic self. This heightened self-monitoring, while intended to protect, can paradoxically limit spontaneity and emotional freedom, making interactions feel performative rather than genuine. Additionally, the experience of emotional disillusionment can alter your criteria for evaluating love and companionship. You may start placing greater emphasis on consistency, authenticity, and mutual understanding, recognizing that fleeting admiration for an idealized image is insufficient for a meaningful bond. This shift in perspective is both protective and instructive, guiding you toward connections that value depth, vulnerability, and honesty over superficial compatibility. The intensity of emotional disillusionment can also intersect with feelings of grief. Just as with the loss of a person or a significant phase of life, the realization that the love you believed in was directed at a constructed idea necessitates mourning the loss of both the relationship you thought you had and the version of yourself they loved. This dual grief, the loss of perceived love and the recognition of being misperceived, can be profoundly disorienting. During this period, emotions such as anger, sadness, confusion, and even shame may surface. You might question your judgment, wondering how you failed to see the signs earlier, or feel a sense of inadequacy for being unable to fulfill someone else's expectations. Yet, through this process of emotional reckoning, there is also an opportunity for profound self-discovery and growth. Disillusionment, though painful, forces a confrontation with reality, compelling you to examine not only the nature of the other person's affection, but also your own patterns, boundaries, and vulnerabilities. It is an opportunity to differentiate between love that is conditional and performative, and love that is genuine and accepting of the full spectrum of your being. In navigating emotional disillusionment, developing self-compassion becomes critical. Acknowledging that the misalignment between the person you are and the person they loved is not a personal failure allows you to reclaim agency over your emotional life. By giving yourself permission to feel hurt without internalizing blame, you cultivate resilience and a more grounded understanding of what healthy relationships entail. Over time, the process of moving through disillusionment can refine your emotional intelligence, enhancing your ability to recognize authentic affection, communicate needs and boundaries effectively, and approach future relationships with clarity and self-awareness. You begin to appreciate the value of authenticity, realizing that being loved for your true self, with all its imperfections and complexities, is far more fulfilling than being adored for an illusion. Through this journey, emotional disillusionment evolves from a source of despair into a catalyst for growth, teaching lessons about trust, self-worth, and the importance of seeking connections that honor the real you rather than a fabricated ideal. Another deeply impactful consequence of realizing that someone loved the idea of you rather than your true self is the long-term effect on trust and vulnerability. When a person discovers that the affection they received was directed not at their authentic self, but at a constructed image, it can profoundly alter their approach to future relationships and emotional connections. Trust, which is foundational in any human relationship, can become fragile or even elusive after such an experience. You may find yourself questioning the intentions of others, wondering whether admiration or affection is genuine or merely directed at an idealized version of you. This hypervigilance, while a natural protective mechanism, can make it challenging to open up emotionally. Vulnerability, the willingness to expose your true self, your fears, dreams, and imperfections can feel risky, as past experiences have demonstrated that authenticity may not always be valued or reciprocated. Over time, this wariness may manifest as guardedness in relationships, where you carefully curate the aspects of yourself you reveal to others. In some cases, it may lead to a tendency to present an idealized version of yourself preemptively as a defense mechanism in hopes of avoiding disappointment or rejection. Paradoxically, this behavior can perpetuate the same cycle that caused the initial hurt, being appreciated for a constructed image rather than the authentic self. Another dimension of the impact on trust is the difficulty in believing in the permanence and depth of emotional bonds. You may question whether people love you for who you are, or if their affection is contingent upon meeting certain expectations. This skepticism can affect friendships, romantic relationships, and even familial connections, subtly shaping interactions in ways that prioritize caution over openness. Additionally, the erosion of trust can influence your ability to give love freely. When past experiences have shown that acceptance can be conditional, it is natural to hesitate before offering your full self to someone else. You may find yourself holding back emotions, opinions, or aspects of your personality, creating an invisible barrier that prevents genuine intimacy. This cautious approach, while protective, can also hinder meaningful connections, leaving you feeling isolated despite being surrounded by people. Over time, repeated exposure to these patterns can create a form of emotional fatigue, where the effort to discern authenticity in others becomes mentally and emotionally taxing. You may find yourself analyzing social cues, interpreting words and actions with an underlying suspicion, or frequently reassessing the motives of those around you. This constant vigilance, while understandable, can diminish spontaneity in interactions and make relationships feel strained or performative. On the other hand, navigating the challenges to trust and vulnerability can also foster profound personal growth and emotional intelligence. By reflecting on these experiences, you can develop a clearer understanding of your own boundaries, values, and needs in relationships. Learning to differentiate between genuine connection and superficial admiration becomes a key skill, allowing you to invest emotionally in those who are capable of appreciating your authentic self. This discernment strengthens your capacity to form healthier, more balanced relationships where vulnerability is met with empathy, respect, and reciprocity. Moreover, the experience can teach the importance of self-validation. When trust in others is shaken, relying on your own sense of worth and understanding of your authentic identity becomes crucial. Recognizing that your value is inherent and not dependent on the approval or idealization of others allows you to approach relationships with greater confidence and self-assurance. Over time, this fosters resilience, enabling you to navigate interpersonal dynamics with both discernment and openness. The process of rebuilding trust and embracing vulnerability is gradual and requires conscious effort, but it also offers the opportunity to cultivate deeper emotional connections. As you learn to recognize signs of genuine appreciation and commitment, you begin to create relationships grounded in mutual respect and authenticity, where your true self is not only accepted but celebrated. In this sense, the challenge of grappling with the realization that someone loved an idea of you rather than you becomes a transformative journey. It encourages introspection, strengthens self-awareness, and ultimately enhances your capacity for meaningful connection. The experience underscores the importance of authenticity, teaches lessons about human behavior, and equips you with the tools to navigate relationships with both wisdom and courage, fostering a life in which trust and vulnerability, once threatened, can flourish again. In conclusion, realizing that someone loved the idea of you rather than your true self is a deeply painful and eye-opening experience, but it also holds profound lessons about self-awareness, authenticity, and emotional resilience. It forces you to confront the difference between genuine connection and superficial admiration, helping you understand your own needs, boundaries, and worth. While such experiences can shake trust, heighten vulnerability, and create emotional challenges, they also offer the opportunity to grow stronger, more discerning, and more confident in your relationships. By embracing your authentic self and learning to value yourself independently of others' expectations, you cultivate the ability to form meaningful, honest, and lasting connections. Ultimately, this journey teaches that true love and genuine appreciation begin with embracing who you really are, and only then can you attract relationships that honor and celebrate your authentic self.